Hello, once again, everyone. I'm your host, Ray Shasho, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends, brought to you by the Publicity Works Agency, specializing in authors and musicians. Remember, we shine only when we make you shine. Call us today at 941-567-6193 for a free PR evaluation. Bass icon Jeff Berlin has recently released a new tribute album to the legendary Jack Bruce titled Jack Songs. Jack Bruce, best known for his work with classic rock group Cream, as well as critically acclaimed solo work, passed away in 2014. Jeff Berlin, who has been called the greatest bass player in the world, was a personal friend of Jack's and wanted to record his songs in remembrance of how Jack helped Jeff to find his own musical path. Says Jeff, recording the music of Jack Bruce has been the most emotional recording project of my career. Jack Songs isn't a cover CD, not in the literal sense, except for a couple of tunes from his Cream period. Most of the songs on the CD came from other periods in Jack's musical life after Cream. Jack's solo career represented a multitude of musical styles. The recording is a new revamp of some of those songs, some of the best music that I heard from one of the greatest musicians of the last 50 years. Please welcome legendary bass player and educator Jeff Berlin to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Ray, thank you very kindly for inviting me. I'm really glad to speak with you, especially because you're in Florida, man. I love Florida.
Exactly. And we got mutual friends, of course, Patrick Mraz.
There we go.
I've had him on the show a couple of times. He's a great guy. Love talking to Patrick. Before this, we got started here. I did ask you about, you had the Players School of Music in Clearwater for many, many years. Why did you leave?
Well, I had made the acquaintance of John McCracken, who is a producer here. I felt perhaps that Nashville it's become quite a hub for musicians.
Right.
And I was encouraged by my wife, why don't we try something new? So we came here. And it was with John, who produced Jack Song and produced my whole series, my reading and educational books. So since I've been here, I've mostly been working with John. That's why I left. I love the area. I would have stayed for the rest of my life in the Clearwater area. I think in my DNA, I'm a Floridian in that regard.
Well, we miss you. I wanted to talk about your education method. I'm not exactly 100% sure how this works. Is it the pedagogical musical training, your method? How does that work?
Well, it works like this. I'm known as a sort of a controversial figure because I've had the audacity to criticize top electric bass teachers and top schools by saying that I don't believe that these sources are actually educating people. I don't believe that people are getting better. And it's not a popular reference. People are more, I would say, in admiration of their favorite teachers, to where I feel people are subjugating their own musical improvement because of it. You can love something or someone so much that you might not notice that what they're offering you might not be really helping you to play better.
Right.
And I recognize that I'm not unpopular, but certainly controversial, because I have no fear and no trepidation of being taught music like a product. If you get a hamburger, you pay for a product. If you get a car fixed, you pay for a product. I'm a violinist of 10 years, and I can tell everybody that if my pedagogical approach, or the way that I suggest everyone learn it, is that if you pay money, you should get what you pay for. And you aren't going to get it, in my opinion, via rock studies and groove lessons and anything that pertains to self-taught principles. bass players and a lot of modern musicians don't have my background, so they might not recognize that they're not getting what they think they are, although they're probably pretty happy about getting it. So my approach is that there's only two ways that we learn how to play. We're either self-taught, which everybody is. Are you a player, Ray?
I'm a guitar player, yes.
And without knowing you, I'm absolutely certain that you taught yourself some things.
I did.
Okay. And the reason I know it is because everybody did. The second way, and that includes the people that we pay to teach us, that's interesting, is that self-taught bass students are paying teachers who are as self-taught as they are.
Right.
When this seems a little bit odd. So I say these things to help out bass players to think differently. The other way that we learn how to play is how we learn how to read and write English. And how we learn to read and write English is grammatically, letter by letter, and then we became fluent to where anybody could post on the internet and write anything that they want. But the initial education was to define the words. Music, people say, is a language. So if people follow my suggestion and add, don't replace, add a little bit of proper reading that I happen to know about because I'm an ex-violinist, I know how guys should start in simple notes. And if they add that to their learning day and are self-taught as you and I are, everybody's going to improve in 3 to 6 months. And their improvement is for life. Realize that a lot of guys have been plateaued now for 5-10 years.
Right.
They haven't gotten any better. And there's reasons for that. And I'm fortunate because I have a good background and I know why. So I try to share that. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my long way around the barn.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of wish I did take lessons early on, but I did not evolve from that because I got bored and it felt like it was turning into math, you know?
It is,
and I had some teachers telling, you know, going into theory and all this crap, and that's when I stopped. It wasn't fun anymore, but you need to learn those things, you know, a lot of those things, I think, to continue.
If people pay money to be taught,
right,
then they've determined that they're not happy where they are.
Right.
It is math, and it isn't fun.
Right.
Learning is not supposed to be fun. That's one of the great lies of base education. It is not supposed to be fun. As well, learning is not supposed to be awful. It's not supposed to make you happy. It's not supposed to make you sad. All that it is supposed to do is to help you to become a better guitar player, a bass player. And if people would have the patience and add, don't replace anything that one loves, the music they love, the rock, the players, the heroes. Sure. If they add this, they can save themselves a lot of money and get better in the process, because that's who I'm talking to. People that pay for a product. Right. Not self-taught guys. You don't need any comments from me. Excuse me, I have to take coffee. Coffee.
Coffee. I got to have my coffee.
Got to have my coffee.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I probably will do that one day, you know, really study the art. You know, it's important. It really is. And I do see the difference between guys that have studied and have not studied. And it's a big difference, you know, very, very big difference.
30 minutes a day. No one has to do 3-4 hours. This is not supposed to be awful. If it was awful, I wouldn't have done it either. It's supposed to be you know, if I could come back to Clearwater, I'll do a seminar and show guys.
Well, I'll be there.
How I feel as a group, they might get things a little wrong, and how I can get them back on track.
Yeah. You know, I admire guys like you, also Billy Cobham, who teaches as well. He's a great guy. I've had him on a bunch of times.
He's the greatest.
But to have these legends like you guys that really know what you're doing to teach us, I mean, that's, you know, it's so beneficial. It really is. Because there's a lot of, you know, just like people learning to fly, you know, you got to have the right teacher. And there's some teachers.
One would think.
Yeah, you would think. Well, I definitely want to talk about the new album.
Oh, sure, Ray.
Jack's songs. I interviewed Jack Bruce about a few months before he passed away. Wonderful guy. I didn't know he was so funny. He was very humorous.
Oh, he's a cracker.
And like you, I admired him very much. You know, I love the work he did with Robin Trower as well.
Uh-huh.
You got so many great guest artists on this album. It's amazing, man. Let's talk about the new album.
Please.
You did this thing was actually put together a little while back, right? Was it after he passed away, or?
Well, it's when he passed away, within a couple of months, I had already arranged the music fairly
Okay.
well. But it was easy. It was all in my head since I was a boy. It was nothing hard to do here
Hmm.
and to arrange. The difficult part came later when I had to finance it myself. I had to invite my guest list of people to see if they would be available. I had to. My producer is John McCracken, and he's the guy that made this record sound the way that it sounded.
Right.
I forgot who's on. Who are the guests? You have the list.
I got the list here. Sammy Hager, Alex
Sammy.
Lifeson, Geddy Lee, Greg Bissonette, Gary Husband, Eric Johnson, Bumblefoot. List goes on. Ron Carter, Tony Levin, great bass player. Billy Sheehan.
Yeah, these are all young, up and coming musicians.
Yeah, they're all
I
rookies.
Of all the rookies, you got to
Yeah.
give people a break. I wanted to have on this record, I wanted to make a record that people had not heard before.
Right.
I'm familiar with a lot of contemporary sounds and the way people record and a lot of that. I wanted to make a rock album for the most part, and to make it a vocal record and to produce it. I'm not the producer, to arrange it and to
Mhm.
musically create something that people haven't heard. And the best way that I thought that I could do it is by getting Geddy Lee and by getting Sammy Hagar and Alex Lifeson and all those guys, because they each, due to their fame, well, their fame was
Mhm.
earned through their unique playing.
Right.
So the list that I have is very impressive, but they loved Jack too, and they were
Yeah.
friends of mine. So we have our own, our own personal love for each other. And I had to make a record that was going to knock people out of their chair. And I've
Mhm.
gotten already a lot of good responses, and that's what I wanted. You don't find this kind of music in 2022. I
No,
think
you
you
don't.
might agree.
Yeah. And it blew me away because you've got some of the songs you never hear from Jack Bruce. You really dug deep, to find his songs. But you come out right away with the first track, Creamed, which was a cool mixture of all the classics. You put all the classics on the one track.
Yeah, everybody knows dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun. Everybody knows ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yep.
So I thought these songs are based on the same form. They're
Hmm.
blues.
They are.
A great deal of Jack's repertoire with Cream was blues. So what I tried to do was to have the bass line to Sunshine
Hmm.
happen while Ron Hemby sang the melody to Politician, and then go into Cream, and then go into Sleepy Time. And it was the arranging element that, if I may, this is where it gets a little, I shouldn't do this. But I created something regarding some of the most popular Cream music that no one ever heard before. And that's what makes me the most proud. Plus my solo. A guy wrote, he said I don't know, I shouldn't do this. Never mind. Yep. When you have something and you're thrilled about it, who was the most egotistical guy ever? Ludwig van Beethoven.
Right.
And the idea of the humble musician is a little bit of a myth. You know why? Because, we're enthusiastic and often braggadocious about our music,
Sure.
but we're appreciative of the people that support us.
Hmm.
So when I say that I made the best record ever and the best bass playing ever and the whole thing,
Right.
I'm not dismissing anybody else, and I'm certainly not ignoring the fact that there are kind and loving people that support what I do and buy my product. And so, but I'm very proud. I worked a long time to make something unique.
I'm glad you're saying that because musicians are normally very hard on themselves. They're tough on themselves. Even Billy Cobham, when I talked to him, I find that very interesting, you know?
Alan Holdsworth was very famous for his self-depreciation. But
Right.
I knew Alan for a long, long time, and
Hmm.
poor Alan talked himself into depression. In other words, trust me when I tell you that there's things that I still practice. I've got my books right here. I still practice in order to, there's things I don't know. Alan talked himself into a depression and literally dismissed his brilliance
Shame.
as a point of extreme and exaggerated self castigation. I don't believe in that in the slightest. I know I
Hmm.
have things to learn. I'll tell you something else, if I may. Everybody plays better than I do today. You listen to like a Hadrian Farad
Right.
and all of these guys, man, I can't even come near them. So what's left for me is
Hmm.
the harmonic and the sonic element of bass. I want to make
Right.
something that Entwistle would have gotten blown away with. I
Sure.
heard from a lot of guys, man, that heard this record. So I knew I did something I feel is special. I think people are going to get blown away, messed
Yeah.
up.
Well, Alex Lifeson is on the first track. Second track, Theme from an Imaginary Western, which is one of my favorite songs. I love when Mountain did it too, of course. Eric Johnson and Bissonette is on that track. That was a very cool song.
Oh,
Very
yes.
cool
Yeah.
song.
I
Letter of,
did a
go
little.
ahead. Mhm.
No, you go ahead.
Now, I was going to say Letter of Thanks. Love that tune. Very jazzy, very fusion. And I guess you're kind of known for the jazz fusion aspects of your music. But, I could see you as a pure jazz musician too, like from back in the day, from the 50s and 60s during, or Miles Davis period and all that. You're
Uh-huh.
like you could be the traditional jazz guy too, right?
I can on electric. It's a little hard because I do
Right.
believe in the traditional sound.
Yeah.
Letter of Thanks in the jazz sense, the 7/8, that was part of the song. I didn't come
Right.
up with that. That's part of Jack's composition. So I guess the swing part with Barajan on Pat on harmonica,
Hmm.
and then Michael Whitaker. So that was sort of the swing part. But
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
we wanted that to sound like rhinoceri coming down the highway.
Right. Track 4, which is interesting. I didn't know this about the pseudonym used by George Harrison on the Cream album. Goodbye, right? Leangelo Misterioso.
Not on Goodbye. It's on Jack's solo record, Songs for a Tailor.
Okay, I thought it was on Goodbye, but
And
that was very clever.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one with Sammy Hagar. See, I
Right.
got lucky. I have rock legends on this. They made it rock. But L'Angelo Misterioso was the nickname that I think Jack gave to George Harrison. So I thought,
Yeah.
what a fun title for the track.
Very cool. Did your research, huh? Or you already
Oh
knew
man, I knew this stuff when I was 17 years old.
Really? That's awesome. Another cool track, Rope Ladder to the Moon. That's got Bumblefoot on it. Another great song. Great work. The kind of reminds me of Jeff Beck in a way. That track.
That's interesting. I thought Ron did one of the best solos on the record. I have some
Hmm.
great players on there. But there's something about the Bumblefoot's solo. It has such a vibe. He has interesting ideas in a very one chord rock element kind
Hmm.
of thing. I'm very happy with him.
Could you and what about you and Jack? I'm sorry, Jeff Beck. What about that collaboration? Would you like that?
Very much. And I wrote a song. You want to hear it? Oh, I
Yeah, of
can't. It's
course.
on the phone. Hold on. No, I can't because it's on this thing. I wrote lyrics. I called Jeff several times to come and do a solo and never heard back. So I wrote something like to Her Majesty. Oh,
Hmm.
Jeff Beck's a pretty nice guy, but he doesn't ever return a call. Oh, Jeff's a pretty nice guy. I know that I love him a lot, but he never seems to pick up a phone. I was just being silly because the guy never called back. I mean, say yes, say no, but he just didn't. So I would collaborate with him. I think that he and I are sort of kindred spirits. But he's happy with his group. I get it. He has a phenomenal band, I'm sure. He's had Vinny Colaiuta, who's better than Vinny. Yeah, I mean, he's very happy, man.
He's been collaborating with a lot of people.
Yes, but you see, I admire that when you get to be of a certain age and a certain experience.
Right.
All that's left, I feel, is to collaborate in different projects of interest. I called a couple of A guys that turned me down, which I understand.
Right.
But in the fact that this record came out so excellently and was supportive of all the guys I played, I think these guys might have missed out on a very interesting musical experience due to the fact that they preferred not to do sideman projects. A lot of guys say, well, I have my thing. And, as I get older, I want to do projects because if they're interesting projects, that stimulates my own musicality in a way that doesn't come from me. Someone else says, so I like being a sideman very much.
I'd love to hear you do an album kind of like the Spectrum album, the Billy Cobham Spectrum album, just get out there and do some jazz fusion and improvise. That'd be awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I confess I'm not much of a fusionist these days. I'm more of a rocker or a jazzer. Right. Fusion tends to have run its course with me.
Yeah.
So unless I do a thing with Scott Henderson and I, and maybe Dennis Chambers, and we played what was that song? What is that? Stratus?
Yeah, Stratus. I think so.
It is. So we went for it. We did things like that, and we were pretty powerful in that fusion element. But I'm more of a rocker or a jazzer.
What about prog rock?
Well, I'm a fan of it by listening to it.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many great bands that came out of prog rock that that are part of my background. The groups that I listened to and that I learned from and enjoyed. So, my door is really not closed to much of anything these days. I'm almost 70, so I don't know how many more years I have, but let's say reasonable health and
another 40 years.
There you go.
Hey man, Petula Clark is still touring. She's close to 90. John Mayall just stopped touring. He's 80s, so you got a long time yet.
I invited John to sing, but he was unavailable. I went to the Jack community, of that era to see if I could get them.
Yeah. One Without a Word. You know what I got from that tune, the way you guys did it? My funny Valentine feeling.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I got from that. That was a really cool song. Very old-timey, bluesy jazz track, And again, another Jack Bruce obscure song, I guess.
That's what it was. It was Jack repertoire, so certainly.
Yeah. Smile Story and Morning Grins. Now that one featured Tony Levin, Billy Sheehan, Michael League, Mark King, Ron Carter, a lot of people on this one. I think Getty was on that track. Very
Marcus cool. Miller, Nathan East. So I was fortunate to get old friends to do it, and I think it's the very first bass relay in music to be recorded. So I took a jack line, and then I gave it to each guy to play the 4 bars of that line and then solo. And what made it interesting is every solo is distinct. Getty's solo, he's not soloed much, but he did some. It's a fascinating handing off, hence the term relay. It's a John McCracken term, the producer of the record. And it's a bass relay.
You made an interesting comment about soloing, that not every bass player can do that. And I think you mentioned Chris Squire, that he wasn't a very good solo player. Is that right?
I don't recall saying it, but I'll probably say it now. Soloing is its own thing, and it
Right.
honestly isn't required in the sort of, musical pantheon. If somebody wishes to solo like I do,
Right.
then we learn and pursue it. But for the most part, if you look at most of the great rockers, they really were not good soloists. Chris falls into that area, and
Mm-hmm.
Twistle.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I don't know. All those guys sort of aren't good soloists because it's its own area of requirement. Soloing in its good way is not a bass oriented approach. It's not a
Right.
bass oriented concept. I could play ba 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 do ba 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 do. That's my bass line. Then comes my time, and I might go ba da boo ba boo ba 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 boo boo ba boo, and that is not a bass focused approach. The bass is incidental.
Right.
It could be on any instrument. So that's why, for the most part, a lot of the greatest bass players in rock history might not have been really great soloists, but so what?
I'm sure you have. You've listened to Fish Out of Water, Chris Squire's solo album. What'd you think of
Sure.
that? Yeah.
Well, it's one of the earliest and one of the great representation of an arranged bass work.
Right.
So in that
Right.
area, it was do 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 do.
Yeah.
Quite original, quite different. It
Right.
shows his imagination, shows Chris's imagination. That song.
Exactly. I think my favorite track on this album is Folk Song. I really like that song. And I don't know why, but I think the singer on this, who sung that?
Alex Ligertwood.
Alex. He sounded a little bit like Donald Fagen from Steely Dan. I don't know where I got that.
He was Santana's singer for some time.
Yeah.
And he's also Scottish, and he also has a tenor. So he's a tenor. So it seemed like I wasn't looking for vocalists to duplicate Jack. I was looking for vocalists to emulate the concept and then do it their way. So that's what Alex did there.
No, that was clever. I'm glad you didn't copy any of Jack's works to the T, because too many groups, too many bands do that. I don't like that. What's the point, right? You got to put your own take into that, So that's why I love this album, because it is very, very different. Yeah.
That's very kind. That's what I wanted. Different. Even different. Different it stands out just on the merits of difference. That's why I'm hoping people catch on to it. They're not going to hear anything like this. And thank goodness that there is sort of an opportunity to present my bass playing and other guys' bass playing and other arrangement. It's an arrangement lesson.
Sure.
It's taking everything and mollifying it and doing things and making it each song, if I may, my enthusiasm is coming out.
That's good.
Each song is a work.
Yep.
It begins and it ends. Each song is its own distinct work. You get done with one, there's another one totally different. You go to another one, totally different. And that it's almost inspired from Sgt. Pepper.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Train Time. Bumblefoot is on that.
No,
he's not on that.
Johnny Highland is on that.
Okay, Johnny Highland's on that one. Great jam. Love the harmonica. Great guitar. Excellent bass. Love that tune. Another great song.
Pretty rocking. It's a pretty rocking song. And Cream, or I think it's a Jack song, or it's a blues standard. I think it's a Jack song.
I think it's a Jack song. Yeah.
It is, right? So I made a joke and made Train Time. It
was written by Jack Bruce. Yep.
This one is written by me.
Yep. It sounds like they were written by you. With a touch of Jack. Talk about the final track. How do you pronounce it? Is it Fuimus? We have been?
Fuimus defines the Bruce clan in Scottish. I happened upon it on the internet. I looked it up and looked around. I wanted to see what the Bruce crest looked like, and found Fuimus, Fuimus, which I think is, like I said, in the Scottish language for Bruce.
Yep.
And we have been is part of their family clan And I wrote, and Pete Brown is the lyricist on all the Cream songs and all of Jack's songs. He
Right.
wrote the lyrics on this, and I wrote the song to go with it, and I sang it because
Oh, that
I'm
was
not a
you
bad,
singing.
yeah,
Oh,
not a
you got a
bad
good
singer. I
voice.
mean, you know.
No, you got a good voice.
Yeah, well, I am, you know, I have this, I function in this area of singing, you know, I go like
Right.
la la la. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
But I'm good at it. I'm just la la la. I can be really great, but then as soon as I go out of it, I go, you know. So
See, I could
the
hear
song
you.
is,
I could hear you singing "My Kind of Town." do some Sinatra, man.
I think it's already been done, but I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, that'd be cool. I like to hear that.
My kind of town, Chicago.
See, you got the voice for that.
You and I.
And you're from New York, so
I am from New York.
yeah. What part of New York?
Well, I was born in Queens. I lived in Nassau. So I'm a
Okay,
Long Islander all my life.
Nassau.
I think the accent,
It's still there.
modified over the years because when I get home, all of a sudden I'm talking a little more like that, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
for all the years I've been out of there, I mean, I still have it. You know, who loses an accent? My father's been in America since 1948, and he still talks with an accent. You
Yeah,
never lose it.
yeah.
So
Well, my father's family was from New York. They're from Brooklyn, Bensonhurst.
okay, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
and I still got family up in New York as well. So
Uh,
yeah, that's the only place you can ask somebody on the street, "What time is it?" and they'll go, "What are you asking me for, huh?"
there's a joke like that, and I'll make it nice because
All right.
you know I'll make it nice. The tourist is in Times Square and he's got lost and he can't figure out where he's at, so he stops a New Yorker and he goes, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me which way 48th Street is, or shall I just go to hell?"
That's good. I like that. Very funny. Well, let's see. Geddy Lee referred to you as the greatest bass player on the planet. Jacko regarded you as better soloist than he was. Marcus Miller told people that he wanted to be the Black Jeff Berlin, and yet Rolling Stone magazine doesn't have you in the top 50. What the hell is that all about?
It is based in contemporary popularity.
Okay.
I give me 10 seconds because I want to explain something. I've been to therapy because I needed it. I went to therapy for some years due to a lot of personal difficulties.
Okay.
And in the therapy, I started to go into spiritual investigation.
Right.
And learned a lot, released a lot. So I became a new man because of all of this work that I did on myself. And one of the things that came to me is that no matter what I have in terms of popularity, in terms of standing, of anything else, I'm grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't regret or anything else. So the reason I'm not in the top 50 is because I've never been in a top 50 band.
Right.
Ratings and popularity, you know, we all know that's going by rep and popularity. I
Sure.
mean, there's nothing wrong in it, but I've seen the top 10 or 20 rock bass players or best bass players, and it's an interesting list, and usually it's based on rumor, popularity, sort of thought that is sort of gets its own sort of wave and continues and grows. You know, it's just how things are. And
Yeah.
By all intents and purposes, I'm grateful for the standing in the little corner of music that I occupy. And I'm also young enough where things are getting better and better. I mean,
Sure.
I might enter the top, 300 if I keep going the way I'm going.
Well, the important thing is your peers think you're great, right? If your
That's
peers
very
think
kind
you're
of them.
great, that's the important thing.
Well, I don't function in the manner that I think people might today.
Mhm.
There is a tendency toward community approved interaction.
Right.
And I tend to be a bit outspoken, certainly in the educational area, feeling
Right.
that people have not been dealt, we talked about that earlier, been dealt a good set of cards. I think people might not be experienced enough to realize that they're not getting taught properly. Teachers, of course, hate me for this. Schools are angry with me for this. I'm messing with their business and I'm messing with their educational reps. but there's a product being involved that I think is flawed, and
Right.
people that don't know better are not realizing they're not getting what they need. And the reason I'm saying this is that I don't function in accordance, in some regard, to how people view that we all ought to behave. You follow what I mean? I'm my
Sure.
own man. I think for myself. I'm not rude. I'm critical about certain things, and specifically so, but never personal. Yeah, Ray, those glasses. Hey, Ray, that let's rock sign.
Mhm.
What's wrong with you? That's not what I do.
Right.
I criticize product and or function in music, in education, but it isn't popular. So I paid a price for that. And the price is people have sometimes not forgiven me for not being like everybody else, I think.
Well,
But I'm okay.
we
I
need
don't mean
people
any
like
harm.
you. We need people like you because sometimes there's a mold that people don't want to break. And I do the same thing in music. Like when people say, oh, Led Zeppelin's the greatest, the Beatles are the greatest. I've been doing this for so long now, listening to music and carefully and everything. I can piss off a lot of people. I'll tell you, Zeppelin's not as good as you think. The Beatles, I'll tell you, the Stones are overrated. I don't think they're great musicians. Why did George Harrison always have Eric Clapton backing him up? I mean, I notice these little things. And I love the Beatles too, but enough is enough. After all these years, enough. Let's move on. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel.
There is an interesting paradigm, which is, and I don't think it's wrong, incidentally, I support it. It's the love of art.
Right.
And the love of art, to me, isn't worth criticizing. In that if somebody loves Zeppelin more than they love somebody else, in that love, I would say that, cool, absolutely fine. What happens is that the press orientation,
right,
the internet rumor, the
PR,
internet
yep,
PR, the overview, puts people that are not necessarily that great as great. Like am I talking too much here?
No.
People sort of banter the word genius. He's a genius. And I've often gone on and said he's not a genius. He's a good bass player. But being a good musician isn't enough for people. He must be a genius. So I'm usually more the realist, and I do it just to offer a thought. I'm not telling anyone don't believe it. Led Zeppelin is the greatest. I'm saying to people, are you over exaggerating it because of your fan love? And that's why I've criticized top schools and top bass teachers, not as people, not as players, but as businesses of flawed education. And I'm sorry it bothers people, but show me where I'm wrong about this and I will stop. I'm not out to hurt anybody or anything. Show me where I'm wrong. I promise I'll stop.
I'm guilty too of using the word legendary a lot, but you do that for PR. You do that so some people will look at your articles and your interviews and things like that. But I've heard guys that just pick up a guitar, clean, no effects or anything, and play on YouTube. And I swear to God, they're better than Jimmy Page. I mean, if Jimmy Page played clean, you know what I mean, with an electric guitar and just plugged in without any special effects or overdubs or anything, it's a different ball game. You know what I mean? I've noticed that. There's a lot of great players out there. There really is.
The great playing thing requires an extra element, and that's what Jack Songs is about. I'm not doing this as a promotion. I'm going to validate your thought. Everybody I know plays wonderfully well. Bass players play better than I do. Many bass players do. I'm not of that youthful, fanatical ability that I used to have.
Right.
What I feel might be lacking in the great players is they don't have a vision in which to place their playing.
Right.
So guys will slap on my instrument and always in the key of E and always in 4/4. The redundant approach of musicians is not a criticism of their playing. It's that they haven't figured out yet how to put their playing so that people will say, what's that? That's what I did with Jack, especially on my first 2 solos.
Yep.
I had to play solos. It wasn't, it was to do something that is not heard.
Exactly.
That's the trick.
That's the trick. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Bill Bruford, you still talk to him? I know you guys were buddies for a long time. How's he doing?
He's doing well in his retirement. I chatted with him. I said, "You ever thought of coming back?" He said, "Absolutely not." He will not play again. He has no interest in it. But we chatted. Yeah, it's just his philosophy. And Neil Peart, God rest his soul, before he passed away, did the same thing. He just said, "I had enough." Whereas Geddy said, "I'll never end playing. I'll never stop playing." And I feel the same. I'll never stop playing. There's a few of us that are...
I didn't realize when you left Berkeley, you were in a band with Carmine.
That's right.
I didn't know that. I love Carmine. He's been on the show many a times, him and his brother. Yeah. He's a class guy, isn't he?
Indeed. I played with him, then I played with Pat Martino, and then I played with Patrick Moraz. That's all within the period of 4 months. Amazing. I mean, that was when I got out of music school. But realize, my opinion here is Berkeley back then was entirely and completely a school dedicated to the teaching of music. And in that, in fact, my extreme views of bass education comes from that school, comes from that time, that it wasn't, and I'm an ex-violinist, so it prepared me. I only went to 2.5 semesters, but I worked like a dog when I was there. I was in every class, I worked like a dog. So that got me with Carmine, who was rock, then got me with Pat Martino, who was swing, and then got me with Patrick, which is fusion. And what's the core thing is I knew what notes were. That's why I asked people to learn them.
I think Patrick's underrated, in my opinion. I mean, he did such great work, and you were on one of his first albums. And I love Relayer. That's one of my favorite Yes albums, which he was on. And he was on Chris's albums too, Fish Out of Water. I mean, he's an amazing player. He really is.
He absolutely is. I owe him too. I owe a career to Bill Bruford, and in a large way, I owe a great deal of exposure to Patrick. So these guys helped to open doors for me, and I'll never forget them for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to name the 5 favorite albums that you picked. We'll see if they still are your favorite albums. Number 1 is Cream, Live Cream. Number 2 is Herbie Hancock, right? Thrust.
Say again. Yes,
Herbie Hancock, Thrust. Number 2. Keith Jarrett, Whisper Not. Number 3.
Correct.
Tower of Power, Back to Oakland. Number 4.
Absolutely. Wow.
And number 5, Jaco Pastorius from 1976.
Yeah, that favorite record albums? Opened everybody up. Yes.
Yep. Awesome.
Absolutely. And yeah, it hasn't changed much. I mean, there's other records that may accompany them, but basically that's sort of the thing. Jaco covered the original element of bass playing. Thrust was just pure funk. I mean, actual proof. I'm friends with Mike Clark, who was the drummer on that.
Right.
Oh gosh, they're all very impactful records to me.
I want to ask you about the relationship between the bass player and the drummer. That's always very interesting. I've got if the bassist and drummer work well together, the essence of the band slips into place. If they don't, the chances are that no matter how good the rest of the band are, the music will lack that certain something that moves the listener. How do you describe that relationship?
Is that something I said?
No, somebody else said that.
Okay. The reason that I question that is because I'm not 100% sure I might go that way in thought.
Okay.
The bass community and the drum community sometimes functions by stereotype view or thinking. The idea that the bass, it's even gotten more down to the basics, whereby the bass and the bass drum, if they're tight, it's smoking.
Right.
They're leaving out something quite essential, which is that a band functions in a tight, cohesive manner when everybody is on the same page in the subdivision of rhythm. When a guitar player plays, if he is not in the same mental concept of the rhythm as the drummer and the bass, the band is going to sound bad. If the pianist is comping, playing chords, and is not in the same time frame as the drummer or the bass, the band is going to sound out of sorts. The concept that it's drummer and bass oriented is a little bit of a myth.
Is it?
It's a little bit of sure it is, because everybody has to be in time together. You can't have a tight band if the guitar player is behind or ahead of the drummer or the bass. Something is going to sound funny. Consider a quartet and consider that they all have to sound the same. It's not about me and it's not about the drummer. It's about all of us. It really is. Listen to Tower of Power.
Right.
And listen to the upbeats and downbeat of the Hammond organ comping, Rocco Prestia's bass. Listen to the guitar. My favorite guitarist with Tower of Power was a guy named Bruce. Oh gosh, I met him once too. I can't remember. He's on Back to Oakland. He's my favorite rhythm guitarist with Tower of Power. I can't remember his last name. And boy, oh boy, was he tight with everything. That's what a great band is about.
How about you work with Billy Cobham? What was that like?
It's just exciting. I mean, Billy this is again the reason why fusion isn't my favorite art form to pursue at this time, is Billy was obviously a virtuoso. I was young and I wanted to be a virtuoso. Everybody was, and it was a lot. But I have to say, from the younger years and the excitement of it, it was just terrific. I mean, Billy's a legend. I used to see what he did on the first Mahavishnu record. Almost can never be undermined. It might be one of the greatest drum performances ever recorded. And the funny thing about it is that when you hear him with Miles Davis, he was playing like Jack Johnson, and then he gets with John McLaughlin, and the guy's subdividing all over the joint, and it's a marvelous ascension in ability. Billy was
my two favorite drummers of all time is Billy and Buddy Rich. I've never seen anybody like Buddy Rich. How fast oh my God, that was amazing. Did you ever meet Buddy?
Yeah, I did for 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Hello, I'm Jeff. I'm the bass player. Oh, that's really nice. Okay. Right here. Get out of here before I kick your ass. My favorite drummer is Ginger. I mean, there's something about Ginger Baker. And I don't mean the studio cream. I mean those live records. Can't explain it. He got under my skin. I got Ginger under my skin.
You got to do that Sinatra record, man. I'm telling you.
In the heart of me.
See? Did you ever see? You sound like Joe Piscopo doing Sinatra. Remember that? He was good, though.
You remember when he was singing to Stevie Wonder, who was da, 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 da. You are blind and I am white.
You got a great Piscopo imitation there. I'm telling you, man.
Anybody can talk like a Jersey guy's going to do it.
I know. Exactly. Jeff, here's your final question. And I asked you this before on your first interview. I'm going to ask it again. I get some interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish like the movie, to perform, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Ginger Baker.
Ginger Baker. You and Ginger.
If I could get with Ginger. Well, I've actually had a wish to be in Cream. I've actually dreamt about it.
Really?
Where in the dream, Jack couldn't make the gig, so they called me.
That's funny.
So I would, if that was the wish, it's funny, it's not a jazz thing. I'd like to play with Wayne, and I love these jazz guys. Believe me, they're a part of my DNA, these wonderful musicians. But if I had a Field of Dreams wish, it would be to play a song with Cream.
Rock band, huh?
Certainly a Cream band. They jam. On Langelo, I did a Cream jam with Gary Husband and Scott Henderson.
Right.
On the fourth tune. And
Right.
we just turned that stuff up on
Yeah.
that song.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hmm.
Well, Jeff, I want to
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for being on the show today, man. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you,
Um,
Ray.
I want to say special thanks, of course, to Billy James of Glass Onion. I've known Billy for a long time now. He's a
Yes,
great
sir.
guy. He
Yes,
does
he
great
is.
work.
He's wonderful. Are you going to put my website? I want people to go in case they want to pick it
Oh,
up.
yeah, of course. This is going to be everywhere, by the way. I stream with Spotify, Pandora. I'm all over the place. So it's going to get its due diligence for sure. I want to mention your website, www.jeffberlinmusicgroup.com. You're on Facebook, and you've got a YouTube channel as well, and you're on Instagram. I think Instagram's Lumpy Jazz, I think. Is that your
Lumpy
Instagram?
Jazz. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lumpy Jazz. And the only place, if I may, I'm a little bit commercialese here, but the only place to find my record, I'm not going to put it on Spotify. I'm not going to put it on Apple. I'm not going to put it on iTunes. I'm a little unhappy or uncomfortable with how musicians don't get paid from these sources.
Yeah.
So the only place you can buy it is on jeffberlinmusicgroup.com. You can get it as a download, high res too, or you can get a CD.
I agree, man. I'm an author. I've got a couple of books out there. Not getting paid. I'm on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I don't see anything. And I know people have been buying it too. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, there we
Je-
are. You're right.
Jeff, thank you so much, man. I hope you come back to Florida.
Oh man, if I could get a teaching gig or something, I'd fly back. I mean, well, everyone would fly back if you're out of town, but I mean, I would come back. I miss Florida terribly.
Yep.
I can't do it unless I was thinking I'm touring next year again.
Oh, good.
I canceled a whole bunch of gigs after COVID came back this summer.
Right.
And I know a lot of people are out there, but I just didn't feel comfortable. So next year, I think I will. I have a Jack Bruce band touring, so it's
Awesome. Very good.
But I'd come back to the area. Yeah. Oh goodness, you're going to make me cry here in front of everybody.
I tell you, man, the place is growing like you wouldn't believe. Everybody's moving to Florida now. You know, and I'm in the Bradenton, Sarasota area. This place has gone nuts. Absolutely nuts. It really has. Patrick's still in Florida, right? Isn't Patrick still in Florida?
I have not talked with him in a very long time. I really don't know.
I'm going to get a hold of him. I think it's time to do an interview and see what he's up to.
Absolutely.
I'll tell him you said hi.
Please do.
I will. All right, Jeff. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And you are the greatest. If I was Rolling Stone magazine, #1.
Over Peter Tork. Anyway.
Over Peter Tork, yeah.
Peter could be Tork.
That's funny. I'll see you, man. Take care.
You're very kind. Take care, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.